There's something cruelly quiet about early Saturday mornings in our neighborhood. The birds aren't quite ready to sing. The world hasn't yet turned on the hum of engines and lawnmowers. It's the kind of stillness that makes your thoughts louder, more intrusive. That's exactly where I was, alone in that silence, standing barefoot in the bathroom, squinting at a speck of light catching the floor. It was so small I almost missed it. A tiny glint near the base of the cabinet, like the sun briefly kissed something metallic. I bent down, frowning. It wasn't a coin, nor the cap of a makeup bottle, nothing like that. It was a foil disc, about the size of a dime, the kind you see pop out of a pill pack. I turned it over. 2 was printed on the back. Saturday. The second pill would have been Tuesdays, I thought, because the packs we used to have labeled each day. But we hadn't used those packs in years, not since I had the vasectomy. That decision had been mutual, carefully discussed. We had 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, and agreed our hands were full. I handled the permanent part. Vanessa stopped the pill. At least, she told me she did. I stared at that foil longer than I should have, feeling like I was reading a confession written in code. My chest tightened. That quiet morning cracked open something in me. Not rage, not sadness. Not yet. Just the buzz of an idea, unsettling and cold. Vanessa was still asleep when I slipped out of the bathroom. The kids, James, 5, and Sophie, 3, had taken to early cartoons, their giggles coming in waves from the downstairs den. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening, trying to feel normal, trying not to spiral. Instead of confronting her, I set the foil piece back exactly where I found it and went downstairs. I poured myself coffee I didn't want and sat with the kids until their show ended. Vanessa came down not long after, hair pulled back, robe tied, eyes sleepy. She kissed my forehead and said, "Morning, love." Her lips lingered a second too long, affectionate, warm, familiar. It made my stomach churn. That weekend passed in predictable rhythm. Groceries, laundry, meal prep. A dinner with friends where we smiled too much and clinked glasses and talked about school district nonsense. She played the part perfectly, leaning into me when she laughed, brushing crumbs off my shirt. A doting mother, a funny wife, a loyal partner. And all I could think about was the foil. That tiny silver whisper on our bathroom rug that said, "Everything you believe might be a lie." By Monday, I had ordered a small army of secrets. A couple of pinhole cameras disguised as air fresheners, a voice-activated recorder small enough to slip under a car seat, a new app to clone her phone. DNA kits too, the discreet kind, the kind they advertise late at night when they know only the paranoid are watching. Was I paranoid? Maybe. But there's a specific kind of intuition that creeps into your bones when you've known someone long enough. You learn their patterns, their rhythms, and you sense when something, no matter how subtle, is off. It wasn't the foil alone. It was how she'd been lately. A little too polished on random days. A little too protective of her phone. There was a trip she had coming up, a college reunion she mentioned with casual delight a few weeks ago. "Just a weekend," she said. "The girls are getting together in Asheville. You remember Alyssa and Brooke, right?" Of course I remembered. And at the time, I didn't think twice. I even encouraged it. "You deserve a break," I'd said. But now, I wasn't so sure what she needed a break from. The packages arrived on Wednesday. I had them shipped to the office, less explaining that way. I stayed late that night installing software on a burner phone, reading instructions on how to mirror her messages without alerting her. The hardware was straightforward, cameras with motion triggers, disguised to look like ordinary objects. One for the bedroom, one for the bathroom, one for the living room. By Thursday night, everything was in place. That evening, as we sat watching a streaming show we barely paid attention to, I asked about the reunion again. "You all set for tomorrow?" She smiled. "Mostly. Just have to pack. It's just for 2 nights. I'll leave after lunch tomorrow, drive down, be back Sunday night." "Need anything from me before you go?" She shrugged. "Just keep the kids alive. And maybe don't burn the house down." She laughed, nudging me. I laughed too. Fake. Hollow. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened her travel bag. It was packed light, jeans, a couple of tops, sandals. But what caught my eye wasn't the clothes. It was the lingerie. Something lacy and new, tucked in a side compartment she rarely used. And next to it, a tiny perfume I didn't recognize. I closed the bag slowly, my breath trapped in my throat. Friday afternoon, she left right on schedule. Kissed the kids. Kissed me too. I watched her pull out of the driveway, her car disappearing down the tree-lined street. The moment she was gone, I moved. The camera cards were already filling up with data. I'd review them later. First, I pulled up the cloned phone feed. Her messages had synced. Most were boring, group texts from her coworkers, updates from Alyssa confirming their supposed arrival time. But nothing incriminating. Not yet. That evening, I fed the kids, read them stories, tucked them into bed. I poured myself a glass of bourbon I didn't want, turned off the lights, and sat in the kitchen staring at the dark window. At 9:03 p.m., her phone pinged. The message came from a contact labeled simply E. The thread was short, no emojis, no names. Just one message. Room 218. I'll leave the key card at the desk. Same as last time. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing. There was no hotel involved in the reunion plan she told me about. Saturday morning, I called Alyssa. She didn't answer, which wasn't surprising. We weren't close. But I left a message anyway, casual sounding. Hey, just checking in. Vanessa made it out okay? The kids wanted to say hi to their Aunt Alyssa. No return call. No text. Nothing. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I pulled up the GPS tracker. Her phone, and by extension, she, was not in Asheville. She was in a small town 3 hours in the opposite direction. Not even near the college she'd claimed to visit. I zoomed in on the map. Her location pinged from a place called the Glenshire Inn, a boutique hotel tucked away off a quiet highway. I clicked on their website. Romantic getaways, couples massages, wine tasting packages. I stared at the screen so long I stopped blinking. The phone buzzed again. Another message from E. You left your earring. Found it under the bed. Wanting to keep it? My stomach turned. I hadn't felt nausea like that since food poisoning in college. But this was worse. This wasn't something that would pass in a day. This was betrayal, sharp, cold, undeniable. I copied every message, downloaded every location ping. Then I reviewed the footage from the bedroom camera. Nothing since she left. But earlier in the week, Tuesday night, I saw her on the bed, smiling at her phone, lips moving, talking to someone. I watched that footage 3 times. On the 4th, I noticed something small but undeniable. She wore the same lingerie I'd found in her bag. She tried it on ahead of time. Prepared. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, scrolling through every lie. Every minute detail she'd woven into her story. The exact arrival time of her friends. The names. The planned brunch. The drive. All fake. I didn't know who he was. Not yet. But I knew one thing. Vanessa wasn't at a reunion. And she wasn't coming home to the same man who kissed her goodbye. It's funny how, once the veil lifts, you start re-watching everything. Conversations, gestures, innocent phrases, like footage from a crime scene. I kept playing our last week on loop, now armed with new context, new knowledge. Her smiles, her laughs, even the way she kissed me goodbye before that college reunion. It all felt staged, rehearsed, performed for an audience of one, me. Saturday morning came like any other, except it wasn't. Vanessa had been gone less than 24 hours, but the silence in the house felt different. It wasn't the peace of a quiet home, it was the chill of absence. An emotional draft slipping through the cracks of our life. I made pancakes for the kids. James drenched his in syrup. Sophie demanded sprinkles. They were happy, untouched by what churned inside me. I smiled, nodded, laughed where I was supposed to. But my heart was somewhere else, stuck at a boutique and 3 hours away. After breakfast, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I zoomed back into the map, tracking her location. Her phone hadn't moved from the Glenshire Inn since she arrived. It was a small place, maybe 20 rooms at most. The kind of spot couples escape to when they want anonymity and charm. The perfect setting for infidelity dressed up as romance. By 10 o'clock, I'd made up my mind. I arranged for our neighbor, Mrs. Klein, to watch the kids. Told her I had a surprise project for Vanessa's return and needed to run some errands. She was happy to help. She loved playing grandma. I packed a duffel bag, just enough for a single night, and loaded it into the trunk of the car. Before I pulled out of the driveway, I retrieved one more item from the safe in my closet, a compact Sony camera with high-resolution video and zoom. I wasn't driving on instinct. I had a plan. I'd been stewing on it since Friday night. I needed confirmation. I needed images. Proof. Not just for me. For court. For leverage. For dignity. I'd built a life on logic and design. I wasn't about to let emotion crash it down. The drive was long but familiar. I'd been through that stretch of winding highway before, back when Vanessa and I used to take weekend trips. Before life got too complicated, before love became logistics. The trees blurred past in golden smears. I barely noticed the autumn leaves. I barely felt the steering wheel. My mind played its own movie the whole way. What if she saw me? What if I ran into them? What if I didn't? At precisely 1:12 p.m., I parked at a gas station a half-mile from the Glenshire. I needed time, cover, and distance. I walked the rest, camera bag slung over my shoulder like I was a tourist. The inn came into view. White columns, hanging ferns, rocking chairs on the porch. Quaint. Romantic. Disgusting. I circled the back where the rooms faced a modest garden. Each room had its own small patio. It didn't take long to find her car. It was parked near room 218. That was the room number from the message. There were 2 wine glasses on the patio table. One had lipstick on the rim, a dark mauve Vanessa liked to wear when she was dressing to impress. A pair of men's shoes sat outside the sliding door, as if they'd been kicked off in a hurry. I took photos. Every angle. Every detail. My hands were steady. Too steady. I felt nothing. No anger. No heartbreak. Just cold execution. I backed off and hid behind a row of hedges facing the garden. It was a perfect vantage point. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. Then the sliding door opened. Vanessa stepped out. She was barefoot, her robe thin, tied loose at the waist. Her hair was damp, like she'd just showered. She looked young, relaxed, free. It was a version of her I hadn't seen in years. And it gutted me. Then he came out. Tall, athletic build, olive skin. Maybe mid-30s. A faint shadow of a beard. He wore nothing but boxers and a smirk. He wrapped his arms around her from behind and kissed her neck. She laughed, not the polite laugh she gave at dinner parties. This was real. Soft. Private. I didn't take the photo right away. My hands trembled. But eventually I did. Click. 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 Intimacy on digital film. Proof burned into pixels. They went back inside, curtains closing behind them. I remained, crouched in the bushes like a ghost. I waited another hour, hoping for more, but that was it. I had what I came for. I made my way back to the car, legs heavy. I drove to a motel and exit away and checked in under a fake name. I needed a night to process. Needed to let the storm pass before facing reality again. I sat on the stiff bed, scrolling through the images. I zoomed in, studied her face. The expression, the way she looked at him. She used to look at me like that. Later, in the motel bar, I ordered a whiskey neat and sipped it slowly, staring at the wall. The bartender had the kind of face you could talk to. I didn't, though. What would I even say? Hi. I'm just here to gather evidence that my wife is cheating on me with someone I don't recognize, in a room she lied about to my face, while our kids think she's reconnecting with old college friends. It would have sounded ridiculous even if it was true. By the time I returned home Sunday evening, Vanessa was already there. She was in the kitchen, folding laundry at the island. She looked up, surprised. Hey, you're back early, she said brightly. I thought you were taking the kids to your parents today? I changed my mind, I said, calm even. Did you have fun? She smiled, eyes dancing with the performance. Oh yeah, it was really great to catch up. Alyssa's engaged, can you believe it? I nodded. What hotel did you guys stay at again? She didn't even flinch. Oh, the Fairstone. Same one we used to stay at in college. I froze. That wasn't even the lie she had originally told me. It was a new one. A fresh lie to stack on top of the others. I stared at her for a long second. She met my eyes, unfazed. Maybe she thought she was pulling it off. Glad you had a good time, I said, kissing her cheek. She smelled faintly of unfamiliar cologne. Not mine. Later that night, while she showered, I backed up the photos to a hidden drive. I also installed a data extraction tool onto her laptop. I'd get everything. Emails, cloud storage, deleted files. I wasn't done. But it wasn't just about gathering data anymore. It was about what came next. Because now I knew who he was. A reverse lookup on the burner phone she'd used for her secret messages gave me a name. A quick dive into his socials gave me the rest. Ethan Graham, a guy she dated briefly in college before she and I met. The what-if ex. The one she always said was a near miss. The one she used to joke about when we were still in that honeymoon phase. You dodged a bullet with that guy, I'd once said half serious. She'd laughed and said, I know, right? Now I had photos of them together, half-dressed, tangled up in a fantasy weekend like we never had anymore. I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair, and stared at the ceiling. That was the moment it all turned. I'd played the role of the quiet husband long enough. Collected data, remained polite, stayed sane. But now it was time to build something. Something painful. Something public. Something she wouldn't recover from. Because if she wanted drama, I would give her a show she'd never forget. They say revenge is best served cold, but mine wasn't just cold. It was calculated, layered, and built like an engineer drafts a bridge, meticulously, with structural integrity and inevitable collapse waiting at the final screw. I didn't want to scream or throw things. I didn't want an argument that could be spun into sympathy. I wanted something that would outlast shouting. Something that would leave a mark. It started with Ethan. Once I had his name, it took less than an hour to track down everything. LinkedIn, Facebook, even his wedding announcement from a few years ago. Yeah, he was married. Still was, apparently. Her name was Dana. They had a daughter. Lived about 40 minutes away, in a cozy neighborhood with too many American flags and lawn gnomes. I stared at the photos for a long time. Ethan and Dana at a pumpkin patch, smiling with cider mugs. Ethan and the kid, maybe 6, maybe 7, dressed as pirates on Halloween. Vanessa had slept with a man who had a family, just like ours. Hypocrisy ran deep, but it also created opportunities. That week, I did nothing, at least on the surface. I went to work, came home, helped James with his math, braided Sophie's hair when Vanessa was running late. I smiled. I cooked. I cleaned the garage. I was the husband she thought would never find out. Meanwhile, I was watching. The cameras in our home were still running. She never found them. I replaced the SD cards every 2 days. The bedroom footage showed nothing new. Just her, occasionally texting late at night on her burner phone, then sliding it back into its hiding place in the vent. I kept cloning the phone every time she left for errands. Every time, new messages came in from E. Miss you already. Can't stop thinking about your skin. Still can't believe we finally did it again after all these years. When can I see you next? She replied with short but telling responses. Soon. Me too. You make me feel like I'm 19 again. Gag me. Ethan wasn't clever. He wasn't cautious. He sent selfies from his office, from his car, from his gym. I had a growing folder of his stupidity. And more than that, I had his address. On Thursday night, I drove out to their street. It was dark, quiet, the kind of neighborhood where street lamps hum and people leave porch lights on for their dogs. I parked 3 houses down and walked. Their house had a red door, a front porch swing, and one of those doormats that said, "This house runs on love and coffee." I stood there for a long time, hand on the manila envelope in my coat pocket. Inside were printed photos, screenshots, timestamps, images of Ethan and Vanessa at the inn, her in that thin robe, him kissing her neck. No return address, no name. I slipped it under the door. Then I left. Back home, Vanessa was asleep when I returned. I slid into bed beside her, watching the rise and fall of her breath, wondering how many lies could live inside one person and still leave them sleeping soundly. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't need to. The next day was Friday, and Friday meant parent-teacher conferences at Sophie's preschool. I volunteered to attend solo. Vanessa didn't object. You sure? She asked. I could leave work early. No, I've got it, I told her. Go crush it at the office. She smiled, kissed my cheek. Thanks, babe. You're amazing. She had no idea, because that afternoon, I had another meeting planned. Not with Sophie's teacher, but with a lawyer. I'd contacted Daniel Marrow, a sharp, quiet man with a reputation for handling ugly divorces with surgical efficiency. His office was all glass and marble, cold in a satisfying way. I slid the flash drive across the desk. Everything's on there. Messages, video, photos, timeline. He plugged it into his laptop, brows raising as the footage rolled. You weren't kidding, he said. This is substantial. I want full custody, I said flatly. Primary at the very least. No spousal support. Clean break. He nodded. That won't be difficult with what you've gathered. And you said the house was yours before the marriage? Yep. Inherited. Fully paid off. Title's in my name. He typed something. We'll keep it that way. Now about the public side. Do you want to keep this quiet? I smiled, thin and hard. No. He nodded again. Understood. On my way out, I stopped at a cafe. I ordered tea I didn't drink and watched the people around me. Couples sharing phones, mothers wiping sippy cups, an old man reading a paperback. It was strange how the world continued, oblivious, even as mine cracked open beneath the surface. I spent the weekend pretending. Soccer practice, grocery runs, making pancakes with Sophie while James doodled sharks at the kitchen counter. Vanessa was breezy, casual, her usual pretense. She didn't know Ethan's wife had found the envelope. Didn't know her carefully crafted affair had started to unravel. She was planning another trip. Monday morning, she brought it up while buttering toast. The girls want to meet again in a few weeks. Another weekend, maybe somewhere closer this time. You good to hang with the kids? I sipped my coffee. Sure. Just let me know when. She grinned. You're the best. I almost laughed. That night, while she showered, I retrieved her burner phone. There it was. A draft unsent. I want to see you again. Let's plan something. No recipient. Just the words. Like she'd been afraid to send it. Or waiting for the right moment. I deleted it. The next morning, I dropped the kids off at school early and stopped by the print shop downtown. I handed over a flash drive and said, "Can you make me 20 glossy copies of these?" The clerk loaded the file. His eyes widened a fraction, then snapped back to neutral. Sure thing. Be about 15 minutes. 20 copies. High resolution. 1 image per sheet. Vanessa, on the patio, robe loose, laughing. Ethan behind her, lips to her neck. The timestamp in the corner made it look like surveillance. When the clerk handed me the envelope, I caught the faintest edge of judgment in his eyes. Appreciate it, I said, nodding. It's for a legal proceeding. He nodded. Understood. I spent the rest of the morning driving. First stop, Vanessa's workplace, a marketing firm downtown. I dropped an envelope in the main mailbox. No return address. Next, her gym. A few copies slipped under the windshield wipers of cars I knew belonged to her friends. Then, her mother's house. 1 envelope. No note. Final stop, our house. I tucked one under her pillow. By the time Vanessa came home, I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables. The kids were in the den watching cartoons. She walked in, humming. You wouldn't believe how slow today was, she said, dropping her purse. Yeah, I said. Slow day for me too. She poured herself wine. Any word from your parents? Are they coming for Thanksgiving? I looked up. Nope, but we'll figure something. She nodded, sipping. Maybe we should just do something small this year. Us and the kids. Sure, I said. That sounds nice. That night, after the kids were in bed, she went upstairs first. I followed 10 minutes later. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the photo. She didn't say a word. Her face was pale. Her hands shook slightly. The glass of wine she'd brought up sat untouched on the nightstand. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I see you found it. She looked up slowly, eyes wide, mouth open but silent. Before you speak, I said, don't bother lying. I've known for a while. I've seen the texts. I've seen the videos. I know everything. Her voice came out small. I didn't mean. Save it. I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, and took out a thick manila envelope. I tossed it onto the bed. What's that? She whispered. Your future, I said. Signed separation agreement. Custody terms. Asset list. My attorney's card. She stared at it. I suggest you read it carefully, I said. It's generous. More generous than you deserve. She didn't move. Just sat there, staring down at the glossy photo of her own betrayal, caught in perfect clarity. I turned toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, voice shaking. I looked back at her, then at the room. Our bed, our life, all turned to ash. To sleep downstairs, I said. And I didn't look back again. The next morning, she was already awake when I came upstairs. Still in her robe, sitting on the edge of the bed like she hadn't moved all night. The photo was gone. The envelope still lay beside her, unopened. She didn't say a word when I came in to grab my phone charger. Just watched me, eyes swollen, mouth set in a quiet line of shock. I didn't acknowledge her. Not out of cruelty, but because I knew anything I said would be interpreted, twisted, spun into a plea or a weapon. She needed silence. I needed distance. Downstairs, the kids were already at the table. James was building a tower out of his toast crusts while Sophie used a banana to draw circles in her yogurt. Innocence, messy and perfect. I kissed the top of their heads. Let's get you dressed, I said. We're going out for breakfast. Vanessa didn't stop us. She stood at the top of the stairs, ghost-like, clinging to the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. We went to a diner a few blocks away, the kind with cracked leather booths and chipped ceramic mugs. I let the kids order pancakes with sprinkles. I drank bad coffee and watched the steam curl from the rim. It gave me a moment to breathe. I had no illusions that this would be simple. The fallout had barely begun. Back home, I tucked the kids into their playroom and closed the door. Vanessa was sitting at the kitchen table, her face blank, the manila envelope open in front of her. Pages spread out like a crime scene. "You're really doing this?" she asked quietly, not looking up. I leaned against the counter. "Yes." She swallowed. "You sent it to my mother?" "Yes." "My coworkers? My friends?" "Yes." Her voice wavered. "Why would you do that to me?" I met her gaze, level and unwavering. "Because you didn't just lie. You built a double life and dragged me into it with a smile. You stole my trust, my time, my sanity. This is your consequence." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I'd cried already, weeks ago, in silence, behind closed doors, when I first realized what that foil pill backing meant. She was just catching up now. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said. "Ethan, it was just... Don't." "I thought I needed closure," she whispered. "I wanted to see who I might have been with if things had gone differently. I never thought I'd fall back into bed with him." I interrupted. "Spend the weekend lying to your husband and pretending your kids didn't exist? Don't reduce this to an accident." Her face crumpled, but again, I felt nothing. "I was unhappy," she said after a long silence. "We were going through the motions. You were distant, always working." I crossed my arms. "You could have said something." "I did." "No, you hinted. You got passive-aggressive. You slammed cabinet doors and expected me to read your mind. You never once said, 'I'm hurting, I need more from you.' Instead, you reconnected with a man you once dated and made him your secret." She folded in on herself, as if the weight of it was finally crashing down. "I never wanted to lose everything," she whispered. "You already did," I replied. We stood in silence, the hum of the refrigerator filling the void between us. That afternoon, I received a message. It was from an unknown number. Just one line. "You bastard." It didn't say who it was from, but I knew. Dana. I expected as much. After all, her marriage was detonated too. I considered replying, but decided against it. Let Ethan deal with the fires he started. My job was done. Or so I thought. By evening, the news had spread further than I anticipated. One of Vanessa's friends, a mutual acquaintance from our kids' school, texted me. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. If you ever need anything, I'm around." Polite, but curious. I ignored it. Vanessa barely spoke the rest of the day. She moved like a shadow, cleaning dishes no one used, straightening throw pillows already perfectly placed. A woman searching for control in a world that had just slipped out from under her. That night, she knocked on the guest room door. I was lying on the bed, reading. "Can I come in?" she asked. I said nothing, just stared at her. She took it as a yes and stepped inside. She sat on the edge of the bed, clasping her hands so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her eyes were rimmed red. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I know I've destroyed everything. But please don't take the kids away from me." I said nothing. She continued. "They need both of us. I'll do whatever you want. I'll sign whatever. Just don't make me a visitor in their lives." Her voice cracked at the end. She wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. And for the first time since the reveal, I felt something shift in me. Not sympathy, not forgiveness, but the faintest flicker of recognition. She was still their mother. Whatever else she'd done to me, she loved James and Sophie. "I won't take them from you," I said finally. "But you don't get equal time. Not after this." She nodded, tears falling silently now. "And you'll explain it to them," I added. "Age appropriate, sure. But they'll know this ended because of choices you made. I won't let you spin it into some mutual parting of ways." She hesitated, then nodded again. "I'll do it," she whispered. "I'll tell them the truth." We sat in silence for a while, the kind that comes after wreckage, when everything's said but nothing is healed. She left eventually, closing the door quietly behind her. I exhaled. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. Until my phone buzzed. It was an email from an unfamiliar address. No subject line. I opened it. One sentence. "You should know Ethan's not the only one." Attached were 3 photos. None of them were Ethan. My vision tunneled. My breath caught in my chest. One of the photos was from over a year ago. Vanessa, in what looked like a hotel bar, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. His hand was on her thigh. Her body language was unmistakable. Another photo, her exiting a car with someone else. Same man, different clothes. A week apart, based on the timestamps. The third, blurry, shot from distance, was the unmistakable curve of her back in a bed that wasn't ours. That wasn't the Glenshire Inn. There had been someone else. Maybe more. I sat there, staring, the betrayal rippling outward like cracks in glass. Everything I thought I understood, the timeline, the scope, had just shattered again. I'd only uncovered the tip of it. Vanessa hadn't made a mistake. She'd made a lifestyle. And now I had to decide what to do with the pieces. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even lie down. I sat at the desk in the guest room, staring at the monitor as the photos cycled through again and again. Vanessa with a different man, from a different time, in a different place. The timestamps told the truth she never would. Ethan wasn't the first. I wasn't her first betrayal. The weight of that realization didn't come as a crash. It was a slow, creeping flood that soaked through everything I still clung to. My grip on the idea that this was a mistake, a singular lapse, dissolved. There had been layers to this deception. She had rehearsed her guilt, refined it, buried it beneath PDA meetings and bedtime routines. And I had swallowed it all whole, believing the performance, loving the mask. But now the curtain was down, and I was done being the fool. By morning, I had a plan. This time, I didn't rush. I didn't storm into the bedroom with accusations. I didn't throw the email in her face or demand names. I let her sleep in, as if the world hadn't just tipped off its axis. The kids woke first, groggy and confused by the quiet. "Where's Mommy?" Sophie asked. "She's sleeping in," I said. "Let's go out for breakfast." Again, we left her behind. And again, she didn't stop us. That afternoon, while the kids played in the backyard, I retrieved the hidden cameras. Removed them one by one. I didn't need them anymore. I had all the footage, the records, the evidence. I backed everything up, 2 copies, one for me, one for the lawyer. I even recorded a statement. My face in frame, tone calm. A clean, articulate explanation of everything I discovered, what steps I'd taken, and why. If I ever needed to present it to a judge, I wanted it perfect. I wasn't just protecting myself now. I was securing the future, my children's and mine. That evening, I waited until the kids were asleep. Vanessa had stayed in her room most of the day, saying little, emerging only to heat up soup she barely touched. I sat her down at the kitchen table. Just the 2 of us. "I need to ask you a question," I said, voice steady. She looked up, eyes hollow. "Okay. Ethan wasn't the first, was he?" Silence. Then, after a long pause, she looked away. "No," she whispered. "How many?" I don't know," she said, almost to herself. "1 or 2. A few conversations that turned into something more. I never planned any of it. But you did it anyway." She nodded slowly, shame radiating from every inch of her. I nodded back. There it was, the truth I already knew. "I got an anonymous email," I said, "with photos of you and someone else. Before Ethan." Her shoulders sagged further. I figured. "Who was it?" She hesitated. "It doesn't matter anymore." "It matters to me." Her voice cracked. "A guy from work. Before COVID. It was just once. It was stupid. We were going through a rough patch, and I was lonely." I waited. "There was another," she added, "when the kids were really little. At a conference. I didn't sleep with him, but it got close. Flirting, emotional stuff. Sexting. I don't know what I was doing." "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said quietly. She winced. "I'm sorry. I wish I could take it back." "You don't get to," I said. "And I don't want your apology." "What do you want?" "I want you to leave." Her head jerked up. "What?" "Pack a bag. Tonight. You can go to your mom's. Or Alyssa's. I don't care. But you don't sleep here anymore." "And the kids?" she asked, voice rising. "What do I tell them?" "That you're taking a break. We'll ease them into it. You'll still see them, but not here. Not like this." Tears welled in her eyes again. "This is still my house." "No," I said. "It's mine. Legally. Remember?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "You'll get a schedule," I continued. "Everything's outlined in the agreement. Custody, visitation, mediation, I'll even cover your legal fees. Why are you being so clinical? She asked, blinking. Like none of this matters to you. It mattered, I said. Then you buried it under years of lies. She stood slowly, shaky. You're not going to give me a second chance? After everything? I stared at her. Would you? If the roles were reversed? She said nothing. You built a different life, I said. A secret one. And now you're losing the one you took for granted. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the table. I didn't curse. That's what broke her. Because she expected rage. She expected fireworks. Something she could point to later and say, see? He was unhinged. He overreacted. But I didn't give her that. I gave her precision. She packed that night, red-eyed and wordless. She kissed the kids while they slept. I watched her leave through the same front door she used to walk through every day, arms full of groceries or car keys or diaper bags. She didn't look back. That weekend, I took the kids hiking. Just the three of us. James asked once where Mommy was. I said she was visiting Grandma. Sophie didn't ask at all. Maybe she sensed the shift already. On Monday, I filed the paperwork. By Friday, Vanessa's mother called me, screaming, then crying. I let her vent. I didn't say a word about the photos, the affair, the burner phone. I didn't have to. The damage had already spoken for itself. The following weeks were surreal. Vanessa moved into a small apartment near her office. We exchanged polite messages only about the kids. Pickups and drop-offs. School events. Doctor's appointments. Every now and then, I'd catch her looking at me during handoffs. A gaze soaked in what might have been guilt, maybe longing, maybe disbelief that I had actually followed through. That I wasn't going to forgive her. That the good, predictable man she thought would always be there had drawn a line in the sand and meant it. The divorce finalized in 4 months. She signed everything. I got primary custody. The house. No alimony. She got alternating weekends and Wednesday dinners. Even then, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't pop champagne or toast to my freedom. The end of a marriage isn't something you celebrate. Even if it was poisoned from the inside. It's something you endure. It's something you survive. But something strange happened in the months that followed. Peace returned. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. The cameras were gone. The secrets were gone. The weight of watching, of wondering, of waiting, gone. The kids adjusted. Slowly but well. They missed her, of course. But the stability helped. The routines. The laughter that came back to my voice. One night, James asked, "Are you happy, Dad?" I smiled. Getting there. And I was. I joined a local gym. I reconnected with old friends. I even signed up for a night class. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted to rediscover who I was before I became someone's husband, someone's fallback. Eventually, the hurt dulled. The betrayal became a scar, visible, but no longer bleeding. Vanessa never remarried. As far as I know, things with Ethan fell apart quickly. Maybe it was the fallout. Maybe he realized infidelity only thrives in shadows. She never apologized again. Not deeply. Not in a way that meant anything. But she never fought the outcome either. Maybe, in her own way, that was the apology. A quiet surrender. And me? I built a new life. Not a replacement. Not a rebound. A renovation. From the ground up, brick by brick, truth by truth. Because after betrayal, you don't just rebuild trust. You rebuild yourself.